I think most everybody knows me. I am Leslie Wittowitz, the Development Manager with Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Services. We have been involved with registered apprenticeship through the Power Up grant, through Xcel Energy, and also we have a LEAP grant. So it's been very exciting learning more about registered apprenticeship and how it can really work with our board initiatives. So then through conversations at the Mob Business Services meeting, Marie and I connected, and it's like, you know what? Let's make a community of practice, because there are so many things that we don't know, but everybody has some knowledge. We can do a lot together and share that knowledge. So that's how this community of practice came to be, and we're very excited to have it grow and have more individuals share. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you, Leslie. And hello, everybody. I am Marie Larson, and I work for the City of Minneapolis and Community Planning and Economic Development. And Leslie and I are both very excited and have been planning for a while to host this kickoff meeting and to help to convene meetings going forward of a community of practice that is statewide, focusing on registered apprenticeship. There are a lot of changes and evolution going on here in the role of workforce development boards, the role that they play in supporting and expanding registered apprenticeship throughout the state of Minnesota. So we're seeing some of that change. We're also seeing more employers come to us for resources and with questions about how to get started in registered apprenticeship. We at the City of Minneapolis have opened an apprenticeship outreach office at one of our career force locations. So we are now having the experience of getting started with registered apprenticeship at a location that's technically managed by deed in our area. They're a one-stop operator at our career force location. So that has been an interesting evolution and integration as well. So we'll have more to share on all of that. And I'm going to go ahead, if it's okay with you, Leslie, and just screen share now a PowerPoint that we put together as an overview, and then we will go from there. Okay, so at the top, we have got an overview slide. Leslie, would you mind going over this first slide?
Sure. So really, this community of practice is going to help adopt and expand registered apprenticeships throughout the state. I know that there are several boards that are right now participating in the Department of Labor and Industries in-person trainings. We hope to take that knowledge truly and bring it to this community of practice, but because we know not all of the boards are represented at the table there. We hope that this becomes more of a statewide initiative. It truly is designed to be a resource and peer support, because we've found that individuals know a little bit, probably enough to be dangerous, but as a community of practice, we're hoping that we can all share and grow our knowledge together and develop some common tools and resources that we can all access. We hope to serve as an information hub, supporting the local areas to grow their capacity, help them identify additional partnerships, developing new resources, and ideally that we would have more additional registered apprenticeship hubs across the state. You know, it's great to have them in the metro, but it'd be nice to have them all over. So there's the overview.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
You bet.
Okay, so our next step, if our attendees would be willing to do so, would be to ask that you introduce yourselves. If you can tell us a little bit about your role and your WGA or region that you're representing. And then if you are looking for anything in particular out of an apprenticeship community of practice. So should we have any volunteers go first?
We could just put people on the spot too, Marie.
Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
Hey, good morning. Chris Staples. I'm with Anoka County. I've only been with Anoka County for about 2.5, 3 months. Prior to that, I spent 30 years in the military and recently retired. So from that perspective, I'm just looking to, number one, gain connections of people that have experience in this. And then number two, just learning what the internships all entail from a support aspect.
Thank you. All right, who's up? Ashley, can I call on you?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Ashley Wren. I work for Workforce Development based out of Rochester, Minnesota, serving regionally. So I serve 10 counties. And I am the work-based learning coordinator and apprenticeship coordinator. I am hoping to collaborate with other individuals who are doing similar things in my role. Just a lot of challenges that we're seeing. I know I've talked with Marie and some other individuals and just kind of get some other support and aspects and just, again, just kind of get a lot of knowledge, some other people that have been doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's up?
I can go next. I'm Courtney Wabi with Workforce Development as well. I work with Ashley and Ginny. I am the Dislocated Worker and Outreach Director. And I'm looking forward to collaborating as well and learning from you all. So excited. Thank you.
I can go if. Okay. I wasn't sure who else was left. Ginny Rittman, I'm the Executive Director with Workforce Development, Inc. down in Southeast Minnesota on Ashley and Courtney's team. And yeah, we're just really excited to see this group come to fruition. It was an idea, I think Deb Barhelgen, talked about this almost a year ago already. So just excited to see this group starting. And we are, supporting businesses in the Southeast region. We're really excited to finally have carved out enough funding to create a position to really help businesses focus on work-based learning opportunities as a whole, and an apprenticeship being under that umbrella, and that's Ashley. So we're just really, really excited that we can put the time and attention to this, and also excited to learn from all of you around the state who are doing great things in this space already.
Excellent.
So next, if you can hear me okay, I'm Betsy Hill with the City of Duluth, Workforce Development, and we are, my role, I guess I work with our Career Pathways program to serve as the kind of lead for our adult teams as well. And, we have a couple of employers in our area in healthcare and manufacturing that are interested in apprenticeship, and we're just really appreciative of the timing of this to kind of walk alongside them as they're developing apprenticeships and see how we can expand it out in our area. I think Elena, our director, is on as well. She might be traveling, so I'm not sure if she can unmute.
Hi, everyone. Elena Fauché, I'm the Director of Workforce Development, and I'm working with Betsy to try and expand the number of apprenticeships available and the types of apprenticeships available in our region, and then use that as a tool to help support recruitment for employers.
Excellent. All right, Bob.
Morning, everybody. Bob Liebel. I'm with the Minnesota Association Workforce Boards. Glad you could all be here.
Wonderful. And Mark.
Mark Jacobs, Workforce Development Director in Dakota and Scott counties, and looking forward to having these smart people who are leading the charge on this provide clarity. Apprenticeship's been a hot topic for as long as I've been in this work, which is a really long time. And Minnesota's really never succeeded in getting anything off the ground. And I should hesitate by saying that, but I won't a little bit. But Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry has done some good work, but it seems so disconnected from what we do. There might be some pockets of work. And so how do we go forward and do something? And so Marie and Leslie, who know what they're doing, leading this, I'm optimistic. And this is important work, not only from what we heard relative to employers, but apprenticeships are something this administration at the federal level seems to like. And so the timing might be perfect from that standpoint as we all figure out our role, or how the feds will see our role with the apparently different lenses that they wear. So there you go. Boom.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We appreciate your vote of confidence, Mark, and we appreciate everyone being here today. It's great to have this, achieve liftoff. That's right. It's been a little while since we started talking about the community of practice, but we are here today. So we're getting it started. All right. So I am going to go back to the screen share and look again at our PowerPoint presentation. Is everybody still seeing the PowerPoint?
Yes.
You are. Okay. Yeah. So I am gonna just do this. I'm actually gonna just reboot that because for some reason it was not on my screen. So we're back now. Okay. So here is the next slide. And in this slide, we're starting to talk about the overall vision, statement of purpose, and kind of activities that we propose that our community of practice be involved in. And just a little bit of level setting on where this communication came from is it's going to be very similar to what we had included in our email that was shared out statewide. Thank you, Bob, for helping to share that out. But essentially, this is sort of like the goal and overall, we believe, at least a starting point of the purpose of our community of practice beginning to convene. So in here, we have some kind of overall themes or activities that Leslie and I, and really our community of practice as a whole, have told our workforce development board directors that we will be reporting back to them on at least quarterly. And these include apprenticeship outreach office. What is the best practice there? If other areas are interested in getting started with an apprenticeship outreach office, what does a startup toolkit look like? Employer engagement, we're hearing a lot of folks talk about that today. So important. What's effective? What is working? How are we getting employers engaged and, over the finish line to agreeing to registered apprenticeship? It's a lot of work. And are there other tools or ideas that we have around employer engagement that we can be developing and sharing as a community of practice? We have learning and development resources. And this space, we think of things like workshops that might be offered in your local area at your career force location or other community locations that would make sense for your area. Pathways to apprenticeship, really important around that idea of supporting career seekers who are looking to explore and to get started. How do we reduce barriers so that individuals can access those apprenticeships at the point where they are ready? And that may include, for some of us, career pathway programs that we already have funded, and looking at those as starting points to registered apprenticeship. We've got tracking apprenticeship availability. I know that we have partners around the state that are doing this and have been doing this well for a while. So would love to learn more about what's kind of taking root in your areas and how you're using those tools. I think another one here, this is really on that employer side, is highlighting where we're growing in registered apprenticeship. Where are we seeing some traction? Is it in the business association side? Is it a certain workforce areas doing some convening or using their board and our influence and our convening power in a different way? Like, what's going on should really encourage the growth and the traction in getting to more registered apprenticeships. Education for boards, this may be something that we're looking for, and we're hoping that our community of practice will be a space where we can bring forward those requests for more assistance. And by the way, this also includes keeping ourselves updated, because there are changes in registered apprenticeship, and we hope to get an ongoing updates from DLI when we're meeting and convening to find out what is happening, what do we need to keep our eyes on, what's changing. Communication strategies, we're going to talk about that in a little bit here. But just more generally, registered apprenticeship strategies, and of course, funding opportunities. So Leslie had mentioned at the very beginning, the registered apprenticeship technical assistance cohort is taking place now with some potential funding opportunities for boards coming up in March. But there are also, U.S. Department of Labor grants that have been out there, and some of our partners around the state have been awarded those. So we're very interested in finding out what you've been working on. And and how that process has been going for you. So I'm going to switch over this slide. Yep. Okay. Leslie, do you want to take this one? Okay.
Absolutely. So, as I had mentioned previously, one of the goals is to really have those apprenticeship outreach offices more across the state. So I think once Marie's area has more tools and resources to share, they'll really be able to help all of us who are part of this community of practice take those, tweak them, and branch out and have those offices everywhere. And part of that is the employer engagement. How do you get employers to the table to talk to you and be willing to move forward? Because the paperwork is intensive, and what is the best practice? And I have observed some of the DLI staff when they come out, and I don't know that they have the most positive approach when they approach employers. They right away, what are your hurdles? Why, they come at it like this rather than here are the benefits of what you can use when you're tapping into registered apprenticeship. So really, how can we best make that sales pitch to employers to get them to move forward? What are the incentives? Who can all be at the table for partners? And what assistance do the employers need to really help get their apprenticeship off the ground? So part of this community of practice is putting together that toolkit, as Marie mentioned, that has all those learning and development resources. Having guidebooks, at a glance, not so overwhelming, but enough to pique their interest where they want to learn more. And then we have staff available from our community of practice that can help walk them through this. And as the last section, really getting schools involved, getting students interested in this as a pathway to their career as well. Any questions so far from anybody? Because we will take questions along the way. You don't have to save them to the end. All right, I guess next slide, Marie.
Okay. Okay, so this is just another kind of look at our first thoughts on getting started, what we're, I think, as we think about our first, maybe say 6 months worth of meetings, again, looking at where we're at today, kind of mapping where we're at, taking a look at that. And I think also really talking to the community of practice of what are we missing here? So it's important to note that this is in no way a final list of activities that we'll be pursuing. There may there may be more. And I do want to just say as well, if we are finding some inroads to expanding registered apprenticeships, say in a certain union or with a business advisory committee or with a business association, we think it's going to be great to be able to share that at the community of practice, because you may have affiliates in your own area that could sort of take advantage of the fact that they have some affiliates in their industry in those occupational areas that are billing registered apprenticeship. And that's just a great success story to be able to share statewide, so that, if we have, say, teaching apprenticeships that are growing in Minneapolis public schools, we're already seeing that other parts of the state have, asked us about that. How did you get that going? Are you using other tools and resources at the city of Minneapolis in your employer toolkit to help to, incentivize or to help the business get started? Where are they getting the training from? How are they putting that together? Which positions are they drawing from, either within the public schools or outside of public schools? So that's just one example of how we've been able to share how some of the apprenticeship work we're doing right now has come together and how we're really resourcing and supporting that. So yeah, does anybody have any thoughts or feedbacks or questions so far on that? This slide, Leslie, feel free to review if you want to, but it just goes a little bit more into some resources that I think we already have available. So, yeah.
Everybody's quiet this morning.
Mm-hmm. We just wanted to let you know that we do have some communications tools and strategies that we have put together at the City of Minneapolis as we launched our apprenticeship outreach office out of Career Force. And that would be, potentially a conversation to have. Are we interested in a cohesive brand for registered apprenticeship work at the board level and in our areas across the state? Outreach to employers, where are we at? Are we interested in convening some employer roundtables that are, beyond just our specific WDAs? Could there be benefits in regional or even statewide conversation with employers? That goes to that kind of research, the regional options. I know that the technical assistance cohort talks about this a little bit, about like a regional strategy, and that's really, going to be, I think, especially for us in the metro, kind of a newer like conversation around, what would that even look like to have a regional strategy for apprenticeship? And then funding opportunities, definitely. Can we support each other? Keep updated on what's coming out, what's available, who might be applying, and if there are some potentials in joint applications or collaboration around funding opportunities. So get that on the slide as well.
Mark has a question.
Oh, go right ahead. Yep.
Hey, I apologize if I missed this, but is the scope of this going to be only registered apprenticeships?
I think that is the ultimate goal, is to have them move into registered apprenticeships. But I think some employers may not be there, and they may need to start a little bit slower. And how do you help them build capacity? So it may not start with registered apprenticeship. It may be getting youth skills training certified so that they could have some students being able to work in their facility to help grow their pipeline. So I think there is a broad option. Elena, you have a question.
I do. So one of the things I want to understand better is the role of an apprenticeship sponsor, and like, what is that role? What do they do? How are they funded? And then do we want to collectively reach out to, say, an industry association about becoming an apprenticeship sponsor? I'm specifically thinking from my perspective about manufacturing. We've got some interest among employers who are manufacturers in apprenticeship, but a lot of them are kind of too small to take it on their own, and are asking, is this a role that the workforce board could play? I say, no, we don't have the capacity to do that, but is that like the regional manufacturers association or even a statewide manufacturers association, could they take on a role as apprenticeship sponsor? And then, a number of employers who all have kind of occupations in common, but who are too small to do it on their own, could join in, something like that. I would love to explore that a little bit and kind of decide, do we want to collectively reach out to an industry association or two to start that conversation?
That is a great question, Elena. And I know that they hit on it at our last in-person training at DLI about sponsorship. And I am hoping that they expand upon that in the upcoming. And it's definitely a question we can ask. I know they have additional resources that we can tap into to get more of that information.
So I think just drawing on this last training that we had with DLI, Elena, and for others that were there, please feel free to also contribute here to the response. But as I recall, one of the things that DLI is really kind of putting forward is an option for local boards, or maybe even, as you're pointing out, Elena, the boards configured like together or in collaboration with business associations to look at those different roles that are available. We're discovering now that there's a role called an administrator, which is something that's actually different from a sponsor of apprenticeship. So we're just starting to learn about like what those different configurations and the role that the boards can play could look like. I completely believe that it would be fantastic for this community of practice to be, first of all, a place where we can bring a question like that or a challenge that we're having, where we could tap into DLI to get some answers if we don't have them right away. So for instance, exactly what is the definition of a sponsor and how are they paid? That's a great question, right? We probably want to make sure that we have all of that clear with DLI. And then think about, yes, who do we invite to the table? Is it possible to ask an association that's representing businesses, or that could even represent more businesses, to come to the table with us and explore the option of becoming an apprenticeship sponsor themselves? So I think that's a great example of being able to convene statewide, because some of those resources may be able to, to benefit all of us in different ways as we're getting started. Manufacturing, there's just so much, out there to be explored still, in my opinion. Like, I think we are just kind of at the tip of the iceberg with that. But yes, the collective work makes a lot of sense. And, again, kind of bringing together our partnerships and our thoughts and being able to tap into each other, to be able to think more about, more broadly, and then bringing to scale in our local areas. What does that look like? So I think that's an excellent question. And my answer would be absolutely. I think the community of practice would be here to support that. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but love to hear what you think as well. This slide right here goes into a little bit more of that. And we see kind of in the second box, developing an apprenticeship outreach office strategy. Some of that does, part of the apprenticeship outreach office really is going to continually be about employer engagement. So I know that we started ours on the side of like, how do we reach career seekers? But realistically, we already have more career seekers who are looking for opportunities than we have apprenticeships available. So this is going to be an ongoing need, absolutely. So anyway, I just wanted to share this. These are some examples of some materials that we've developed at the Minneapolis Apprenticeship Outreach Office. On that right-hand side, you see a logo that we're using now that absolutely could be easily adapted to any part of the state. So we've got the word Minneapolis underneath apprenticeship, and your local board or region could certainly be plugging into that. And then on the left side, you'll notice this is our flyer that we developed. It has that logo in that upper left-hand corner. And one of the techniques that we launched right away with our apprenticeship outreach office was using an inquiry form. So that QR code goes right to a form that allows folks to say, hey, I'm a blank and I'm a business, I'm a career counselor, I'm a career seeker, this is where I'm at. And it gives their area where they live in the metro. And then they can put in their email address or other contact information. And our navigator, Harrell Matthew, reaches out to them. In the last probably 2.5 months, he's told me that he's received well over 100 inquiries from us promoting this form. And he's actively working with career seekers who are interested in pursuing apprenticeship, actually in a variety of industry sectors. He's got several looking at community health worker, a couple of looking at healthcare in general, obviously many in construction, but he also has individuals who want to work for Metro Transit and get into the technician role as mechanics. So that's interesting. And he's got a couple more too. So and that's been an effective outreach tool. And then this is just the final slide of local representation, like who would be participating from your area? How often should we be thinking about meeting? And yeah.
We also want to know from this group, who are we missing at the table?
Right.
Who should, we are hoping
point.
to get a representative from DLI to be on our committee to share resources and information, some successful employers, I think both union and non-union, because our goal is not to just promote union apprenticeships, but to promote apprenticeship across the board.
What are your thoughts about having somebody from Deed? Because as I understand, some of these programs we look at, we need the, if we want to co-enroll in WIOA, for example, then they need to be approved on the ETPL list. Do I have that right? And no, that doesn't mean necessarily you want them on the committee, but I want to put that out there in case. I'm guessing you already thought about it, but is that a value add?
It could be. I know that this training, this last training we went to, it was very informative, and some of the virtual webinars they did beforehand, how you can use dislocated worker or WIO funding to really move forward. So OJT, also incumbent worker, because if they've been there and they're going to do some continuing education through an apprenticeship, there are ways to tap into those funding or that funding stream. So that is one of the trainings and information we can share at this community of practice, those strategies, how to make them successful. I think the biggest thing is when Marie and I talk, each apprenticeship and in the company, it is difficult to navigate and get your questions answered because each one is so different. Each apprenticeship program has different formats, what they need, the employers they work with, they guard those employers very closely. So as a community of practice, we're hoping that as a group, we can get more inroads with those employers. Maybe they come and visit with all of us so that it's a consistent message and they know we're trying to do this across the state. So I hope that answered your question, Mark. I think that's kind of all over.
Yeah.
I think that it certainly could be when we started at the very beginning of the apprenticeship outreach office in Minneapolis, we had asked about Deed representation, and it was Mike Lang at the beginning who was participating, and then he really kind of faded from that a little bit. So we could certainly invite him back. It would be great if he would like to attend. I've also thought about, just the employer navigators in general. That could also, be important as we move forward. Elena, looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, one of the things, so I like your idea of kind of almost like inviting guest presenters to different meetings to talk about buckets of apprenticeship, because one of the things that would be helpful for my toolbox is to hear from employers in like healthcare, sort of the non-construction trades that have launched apprenticeship, and just really kind of dig in on how do they put it together, how's it funded, how are they recruiting people, all that, so that I can share that information with employers in my region. And one in particular that I think it would be great if we could invite is utilities. We met with Department of Labor and Industry yesterday, and they pulled data on what registered apprenticeship programs there are in our region. And aside from construction, which is the biggest, the other largest type is in utilities. And I feel like that's a type of apprenticeship we don't talk about much. And I've tried to research it for Minnesota Power in our area and have had a really hard time finding out information. And so I'm like, if I can't find it, a job seeker certainly can't find it, right? So I would be really interested to hear from a utility or a couple of utilities. I think they all have apprenticeship programs, or most of them have apprenticeship programs for at least line workers. So I think that's a great idea. And I think that would be useful for us to as a way to dig in and understand registered apprenticeship a little bit better and what we can be telling employers, local employers, based on what we hear from others' experiences.
Yeah, and sometimes we just, we come across the information that, is quite interesting. In fact, just as a super quick example, yesterday we were in a conversation with somebody from our staff at the city, and we're going to be reopening a venue in Minneapolis that's for professional dance. So it's like a theater, and they don't have enough people to come in and manage the actual theater or to like do production. of the events that they're going to have there, which led us to a conversation of talking to there's actually a union for stagehands. And in that conversation, I found out that they were very close to developing a registered apprenticeship for that occupation right before COVID. And then obviously those venues all, were shuttered and not open. But now that they're all back, and thriving again, they're just like, we got to locate people to do this work, right? Everything from, running the stage to running the house to, production and artistic direction to, light shows and they call it rock and roll, people to do rock and roll, big outdoor venues. So yeah, that's just interesting that sometimes, these things come up and we surface them just in conversation with organizations such as unions and, associations, etc. So yeah. I think that another thing that we might just want to mention here is that as we were getting started, are you all familiar with Saffold Partners? They're a national organization. They've been doing some consulting around the country in a variety of areas, but they have a woman who was prior professional at the Department of Labor, who's now retired, and she's really helping to lead the charge. And she's, really there to assist us if we do have any questions. And one thing I asked her for was, do they have any good examples or maybe just conversations we could have with folks from other parts of the country that have done more to integrate their business services with registered apprenticeship outreach to employers? And what does that really look like, right? What changes were made? What, were there, tools or techniques or even more types of responsibilities that were put in the hands of business services, like to learn more, or what are they doing that's different from what we have now? So I know that's a topic that I'm interested in learning more about.
Yeah, so they've presented a number of times on apprenticeship. And I think that they're the ones that are partnering with for this series that some of us are a part of,
They
right?
are. Yes, they are.
Yeah. I would say to date, I mean, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I can't speak to the last meeting, but before that, a lot of the information to me was somewhat repeat. And I really I'm a doer, right? So I'm always like, okay, so what can we do with this? What is the next step and how can we implement this in Minnesota? How can we actually use this information? So I'm hoping that we get there with the next two meetings. I know, the next two are in person also, and that's my hope, at least, is that we're going to get there. I feel like it's been very high level repeat information for me, and the ones that I've attended from the national perspective have sort of been that way too, which I guess, isn't a negative thing. It says that we're doing what we should be doing already, right? But I want to just be able to take it to the next level and really implement some of the work in the local areas.
Yes.
And that is the goal of this community of practice. And, the focus of getting that startup toolkit together. So really starting with, I think we really hope that everybody buys in and that the city of Minneapolis lets us all use their logo so we can just have a consistent branding and message across the board and share some of the resources that we all have.
Right. I think there's a lot of benefit to having the subject matter expertise on registered apprenticeship, like in our local areas, to be able to respond and bring that out in our business visits, to be able to do more to support DLI and interacting with employers, and to find out, are there pieces that are like, if Leslie or LaRon goes, right, to meet with a business and they leave, is there more that we can be doing in supporting the business, right, and making those decisions and taking those steps to get closer to that registered apprenticeship? So I just think, yes, I completely agree. I also tend to be fairly, I guess like kind of practically minded around like, what are we actually doing and is this working or what is everybody else up to? It's also kind of an interesting point in time because I know those of us that are in this registered apprenticeship technical assistance cohort, several are that I've talked to so far are, going to be submitting, a plan and hopefully, getting some funding to support board work in registered apprenticeship, which is awesome. So if we all did receive a grant, it would be interesting to see like what's going on, right? As we're getting started with our plan, what's our plan about? What are we working on, right? How's that all going? And from everybody I've talked to so far, I know that everybody wants to do more with expanding apprenticeship, non-traditional, and more employer engagement. This is pretty universal.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to add, I think it's exciting to think about the goal being registered apprenticeship, but some of those initial steps or pieces as well. I mean, talking about youth skills training, even OJT and incumbent worker,
yes.
It feels like registered apprenticeship is something that I think employers are much more familiar with. And if it feels too lofty a goal, like this is a great way for us to just increase their understanding of our resources to help in those little steps along the way that they could be taking on their pathway towards it. So. That's exciting.
Yes, I agree, Betsy. There's so many different work-based learning opportunities. And I think job seekers are really into the learn and earn model. They want to be able to earn some money while they're learning on the job. So how can we support employers and the job seekers? Hi, Kyle.
Hello, Kyle.
I'm a little bit early, so I figured I'd pop in.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you. My apologies if I'm the only WDI person here, but glad to see where I can pitch in.
Would it be okay if we shift over to the that item to talk about how often the community of practice meets? And then also, right, like who else should or could we include in the invitation?
So I had a thought that monthly might be too often, but quarterly might not be enough. So my suggestion to Marie was to meet every other month. But then we also thought if there were some, like this toolkit, if there was a committee, a subcommittee of the larger group that wanted to work on specific task-oriented things, that they would meet more frequently. But as the big committee of practice, my thought was every other month. Not sure what anybody else thinks, but we would love your thoughts and opinions, and if there's a day or time that works better for most people. Don't everybody chime in at once.
I think the bi-monthly meeting sounds good. I would say, we can certainly look at, it would be nice to kind of connect at intervals based on the in-person meetings with DLI, maybe a follow-up. I would prefer not Thursdays personally. I don't know if that's anyone else, but everybody likes it. But I think, it does feel helpful, and Leslie, I appreciated your comment earlier about, maybe DLI is not selling the sizzle, right, of RAs a little bit, and it kind of feels good to maybe have this group as an opportunity to kind of look at what's being offered and how we could adapt it to the specific needs our boards and communities are needing.
I know I joined late, but already I want to agree with a couple of the things talked out there. I think not selling the sizzle was a perfect way to put it. I think I know from our team, there's kind of a similar agreement. We had questions, but felt like they were moved over really quickly. So we were reserving a lot of judgment for the next session, where they were supposed to dive in specifically into some of the funding and how that fit with the policies. Monthly by monthly, we're all good. Wednesdays are days where we have kind of a number of different meetings that tend to conflict, and I apologize. I think that's kind of what struck us for today. But Thursdays are also another busy one. So I know that narrows us down to 3 of the 5, but also we're glad to try and make sure we get at least one of our folks out here moving forward.
Okay.
Does this meeting have any alignment at all with MOB's Business Services Committee?
We had thought about that, but we really thought maybe it was more of a standalone committee, especially when we brought it, I know when Deb brought it to some of the other directors. Just, I think a little bit of a different focus.
Yeah, and I actually agree with that, but it appears those and Bob's still on? Yeah, Bob's still on.
Yeah.
If those are, those meetings seem to be running shorter. I'm wondering if there's a time slot there that there might be some alignment. If they are going to condense, if they're not, never mind.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead, Leslie.
Those are Thursdays again, which I know some other people said was a conflict.
Yeah, and I know Tammy just sent out the survey to get input on folks with reducing the time or the frequency of the meetings too. Excuse me, I think what's been working well is both Marie and Leslie are on those meetings and keeping people afoot of what's going on here, which I think is a great strategy.
Yeah. I would agree. I just think that there are so many other broad topics that come up in that meeting that are, and a lot of people are just sharing a lot of just different information in those meetings, and it's all valuable and it's very interesting. But yeah, I do think that this is a specialty area, and because I think that we're also kind of learning as we go here that we're going to have some really kind of specific questions, as Elena brought up, how do we exactly find out what it means to be an apprenticeship sponsor and how they get paid, right? We're going to need more actual technical assistance, answer to questions, and then thinking about how to, kind of digest that. Is there anything that the community practice wants to do together with challenges? It's just really more in the weeds, more, I think it's just, yeah, kind of beyond. But I personally, I know that for me, a Tuesday would likely work better, or even a Monday than a Wednesday or Thursday. So I agree with everybody else. I'd probably vote for Tuesday. But we could also, if we have work to dig into or some specific area, so, if expanding manufacturing apprenticeships is one of your goals in your area, we could have just a committee focus on that in the alternate months when we're not meeting as a whole community of practice, and just, go deeper into that and find out what's, what everybody's doing. So that's my thought, at least. Yeah.
All right, we do have our date set already for so our focus today was more of an overview description of what our community of practice, but really starting to dig into the nitty-gritty is next month. Already, we have a date scheduled where we're hoping I will try to reach out and get a DLI partner. I don't know, Marie, if you want to reach out to Mike and see if he wanted. But then we'll really kind of start to share what's been put together so far for resources and tools that we have already, and try to find, I think that was another question maybe we had for you, Bob, if there was a place to kind of have our own page on the website where we could house all of this stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can build a tab and whatever you want on there, you can send my way and I'll get it posted.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah. We'll definitely want something like a resource and toolkit library, basically, right? And then, and then depending on what we end up doing, if we have some, you know, marketing or other collective messages that we want to put on there, or other types of, you know, things like maybe registered apprenticeship, like we're talking about the guidebooks and stuff like that. So yeah, for sure. It'd be great to be able to have them somewhere where we can all get to them, pull them down, put them on our web pages if we want to, and even like that marketing and collateral if people are interested in, you know, building off from what we have now. So that'd be great, Bob. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I feel a lot more confident already in my work in registered apprenticeship, knowing that I have you all to collaborate with, and that we'll be in this together as we're moving forward, and, you know, and learning and making headway, and just continuing to grow registered apprenticeship options in our areas and in our state. I think it's going to be a great collaboration. So we appreciate you all coming today and spending this hour with us. And Leslie and I will make sure that, well, you know us. Does everybody know us? Do you want us to send out an email with our full contact information? You probably know who we are, right? Who the two of us are. I could also put my email in the chat just in case you don't have it, but I think we were on the invite.
Marie, I wonder if you want to add a slide with our contact info, and then we could just send the PowerPoint to Bob.
Yep.
Yeah.
Will do. Yep.
And we can occasionally do an in-person meeting and bring some good caramel rolls. I know I live close to Clearwater, the Travel Plaza, where they have the donuts that are bigger than your head. So could bring some of those if people, you know, maybe not around New Year's, so people are past their resolution time and ready to indulge.
And you're all welcome to come up and meet in Duluth this summer sometime. Maybe could grab a stop by the lake.
Fantastic. Yeah, we'd love to. Yeah, I think this is going to be great. And as just so you know, so we've already had a couple of like topics and themes and kind of requests for some, you know, information come up. As you're thinking of those and you leave today, or you think of more, you're like, hey, can we get a speaker on this? Or could we think about that? We are open to suggestions, right? So just keep in mind, we'll probably start putting together, you know, a bit of a calendar and ideas for, you know, for future topics and speakers. But we'll always want to keep some time in our meetings just open for talking about what's going on, right? What are we seeing? Do we have problems we want to try to address together? Are we looking for employer contacts? You know, all of that, right? Like the actual work of implementation, for getting stuck, right? What we'd like more help on, all of that. So I wonder if a 1 hour long meeting is right. Does that seem right? Like an hour 15? What do you all think? An hour, 90 minutes always seems a little bit too long to me, but I know that if you don't schedule it and then you go over, it can be hard. So I don't know.
I think I prefer scheduling an hour and a half, but then if we get done early, bonus time back in your day.
That's right. That's right.
You're saving a little treat for ourselves later on. It's great.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you, Marie, for putting together the PowerPoint. It looks amazing. I appreciate your hard work on that.
Oh, of course. And thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm going to press the stop record button now. And Bob will be sending this over to you to share out. Thank you.
That's great.
See ya.